And we're going to talk right now about the results of a provocative new study. It's published in the Journal of Reproductive Medicine. I'm not even going to try to explain it to you. I'll let our guests do that. It's really extraordinary. To tell us more about it, we're joined now by Dr. Roger Lobo, the study's lead author, chairman of the OBGYN department at Columbia University Presbyterian Hospital, and by our medical editor, Dr. Tim Johnson. This is today's edition of On Call. Dr. Lobo, this extraordinary study, tell me basically what you set out to do.
Well, this is obviously a controversial area, and we thought if there was an influence, we wanted to do as rigorous a study as we could.
But these involved women in Korea.
Women in Korea
who had gone through in vitro fertilization.
Who were going through in vitro fertilization. My collaborator, Dr. Cha, who's the lead author on the paper, actually has a fertility clinic he runs in Korea, and so that was a connection about doing it in Korea.
So almost 200 women in Korea who go through in vitro fertilization. Then you go to people in the United States, Canada, and Australia, and you ask them to pray for some of these women to get pregnant.
That's correct.
All right. And they see pictures of the women that they're praying for?
That's correct. The women didn't know they were being prayed for.
Right.
The physicians didn't know they were any intervention was being carried out. They were stratified, randomized, then their pictures of those that were randomized to prayer were transmitted by an independent statistician to this country and then transmitted to prayer groups in the 3 continents.
So you have prayer groups praying for about half the women.
That's right.
And, sad to say, nobody praying for the other half. And the percentages that got pregnant?
About 50% got pregnant in the prayer group and about 26% in the non-prayer group.
Twice as many got pregnant that were being prayed for.
That's what the data show.
And you said you were so stunned by this, you didn't know whether you should publish this or not.
Exactly. We remained skeptical. We wanted to do it as rigorously, scientifically as we knew how. We didn't expect to see anything with that kind of design. The results weren't even of borderline significance. They were very, very significant. We used statistical techniques to try to look for variables that might explain it away. We couldn't do that. So it remains unexplained to us, and we decided in the final analysis to go ahead and publish these results because, you know, there needs to be more work in this area.
I love it when a doctor who publishes a study and says, I don't quite know what we have here. We're just amazed ourselves.
Healthy scientific attitude.
Tim, your response, your feeling about this?
Well, first of all, as a scientist, I would point out that getting pregnant involves a lot of biological, psychological, maybe even spiritual factors that we don't yet understand. I agree, the study was very well done in terms of what we do know, but I suspect if you repeated the study or another group does it in the future, we might get a different result. And when you look at the overall results of the hundreds, now thousands of studies on prayer and healing, some show a positive connection, some show no connection, some show a negative connection. So overall, there's no bottom line predictability about prayer and healing.
All right, that's your response as a scientist. I think we've mentioned often enough, you're also a minister.
Oh boy. Well, I believe in prayer personally, sure. And I believe in its benefits for us, for our families, and in worship. But I must say that when you start talking about anonymous, long-distance prayer, it starts to sound like a gimmick to me, like an act of magic. I also worry about the theological implication. It's like God doesn't act unless we get enough prayer warriors. And so people are out there trying to get an advantage, as it were, at the throne of God. It doesn't sound right to me theologically. And I also worry about the potential psychological downfall for some people who will say, if they don't get pregnant or they don't get healed, well, I didn't have enough faith, I didn't get enough people to pray for me. I think there's a potential danger
And
there.
I would suspect Dr. Lobo agrees probably with everything you've said, except here I am with these results. What do I do with it?
I certainly do, and whether or not prayer ultimately has an effect, I think it's valuable to do studies like this because whatever the confounding variables that may have influenced this, if it's not prayer, we might learn something from it. If we repeat the study, find out that there's some variables that we didn't know how to control, it will help the field.
And there are a lot of people studying this, I guess.
Oh, huge numbers, and I'm aware of some other large studies that are going to be reported within the next 6 months to a year that will confuse us all over again.
All right. Tim Johnson, thanks very much. Dr. Lobo,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to have both of you here. We take a break. When we come back, the parents of Heather Mercer join us as they fight to win freedom for their daughter. She's one of those in custody and facing trial by the Taliban for preaching Christianity in Afghanistan. Stay